Thank you, Chris. So I wanted to hand not the mic, but the mic over to Ryan so that he can just welcome everybody and get the meeting started. Go ahead, Ryan.
Thanks, Michelle, and good evening, everyone, for joining us and spending a little bit of time tonight to learn more about the landscaping and lighting maintenance districts. Hopefully by now, folks have had an opportunity to take a look at the engineer's report, take a look at the community meeting, or maybe some of you have attended the community meeting. And really, we wanted to provide an opportunity for folks to ask questions and answers as follow-up to that community meeting. So there's today, as Michelle talk through kind of the next things that we're going to discuss today. It's really a question and answer, a pop-up. We also had that last week on Saturday. So with that, I think I just really wanted to say thank you for being engaged and continuing to stay on with us here as we work through the process. And with MBS, there's a lot of folks on the call here with information that we could hopefully answer for you. So with that, Michelle, I'll hand it back over to you.
Great. So just to lay out the format of this, it really is a question and answer format. So we are going to ask for everybody. We don't have that many people on, and so I believe that we'll be able to get to a lot of people's questions. But I do want to ask that we ask one question at a time, allow some other people to ask questions, and then we'll come back to you if you have an additional question. If we can just please remember that this is an opportunity to ask questions and answers. So we ask that if you do have an opinion, you please email us or let us know. This isn't a time to take the proverbial mic and give your opinion. It's really time to get your questions answered. And so with that, if you would like, you can go ahead and raise your hand on here, and we will call you one at a time. I will unmute you, and then you can ask your question. So if you have a question, go ahead and raise your hand. I see Jimmy Brett. I don't know how to say your name, so if you can mention it when I unmute you, that would be great.
Yeah, it's Jamie Brazil.
Oh, hi, Jamie Brazil.
Hi.
Go ahead and ask your question.
So it's kind of a follow-on to a question I had at the meeting up at the clubhouse at Rancho, and it's regarding the cost of the maintenance over the last 2 years and how it's gone up over 100% in 2 years. And so the answer was that we got that the bidders just are coming in at that price. And so I looked at some of the other districts, and I noticed that really there's only a few districts where the price has gone up, ours being the most. And then there's some districts where the price actually went down over the last 2 years. So my question is, does each district get a separate bid, or is it one? Does Dominguez do the landscaping for the entire city, or how does that work?
Thank you, Jimmy. Oh, go ahead, Chris.
So each district does get its own proposal. We do have some districts, like our smaller districts. At one point, we asked the landscape contractor to propose for all 3 smaller districts, just because for economies of scale, they'll be able to give us cheaper prices if they get all 3 districts. And then sometimes one district is en route to another and they have capacity, so they're able to take care of multiple districts. But the prices we received are on a per district basis. I'm not sure the districts, I don't know if you have that information on hand, which districts actually went down over the last couple years. But the districts that, at least the most recent contracts that we've had, they've all seem to be on that same sort of upward trend. We do have some contracts that were established maybe in 2018 or 2019, and they were on a 2-year term, and then they were renewed with just a CPI increase. So it wasn't as a large increase that some of these other like brand new contracts have been. And hopefully that answers your question. If that Or was
Yeah,
it-
yeah, it does. I'm still concerned over the 100% increase over 2 years. I'd be really happy with if it was just CPI, or even, have 50% over 2 years. It just seems like it's an awful lot for a few districts where some of them are staying the same or going down. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Does anybody else have a question? You can go ahead and raise your hand.
While we're waiting, I can add a little bit to that question and Chris's response. Hi, everyone. Sorry, I was a little late. I was having technical difficulties. Paul Koschel, I'm the Director of Public Works. I think you probably saw, some of you probably saw me at the community meeting. The costs, increasing costs of the landscape contract maintenance is a concern to us, as I'm sure it's a concern to you. We're going to continue to search out landscape contractors that are interested in doing business here with the City of Fairfield. The pricing that was incorporated into the engineer's report for this district and the others are from recent bids from TerraCare, who is the current landscape contractor as of January this year at the Rolling Hills District, Paradise Valley, and North Cordelia. We've seen really good work out of that contractor. We've heard really good reviews from some of our engaged residents. That the pricing that we've received from TerraCare will cover us. I mean, the proposed engineer's report and the assessments associated with that will cover the proposal, similar to if we receive a similar one from TerraCare. But again, we do hope to reach out to other contractors that are interested in working with us. To that end, one of your neighbors at the community meeting said that he works with landscape contractors, and he thought we could get better pricing. And so I was able to speak with him not that night, but the next day someone provided his contact info, so I spoke with him. We had a good chat on the phone the following day, and he said he would reach out to his contacts and let me know if there was contractors interested. So haven't heard back, but definitely open to other firms if they are out there.
Thank you for that, Paul. I did want to mention, for those of you who may not know, how to raise your hand. You will go to the reaction button, which should be at the bottom of your screen for most of you. There's a happy face and then a little plus button. If you click on that, you will be able to raise your hand. There you go. I thought maybe that was the issue. David, did you have a question? Or were you just practicing? Right, so David, you are unmuted, and please feel free to ask your question.
Did you say Dave? Hello?
Yes, David, you can ask the question.
I have some process questions, and for the benefit of the other folks who are on this call, my name is David Baker. I was actually on one of 4 people on the Rancho Solano work group working with the folks, and I'm more interested in process than I am some of the other stuff. So question number 1 is, how many folks are on this call tonight? We have no idea since we don't see any pictures. So how many folks are on this call?
Yeah, so David, we have 11 attendees on this call and then 7 panelists.
I'm sorry, Michelle, I couldn't understand what you said.
So we have 11 attendees today.
11 homeowners.
I understand your answer is 11.
Yes.
Okay.
Is that homeowners?
And how many people are on the CivicMic email distribution list now?
David, I would have to look that up. I can definitely get the answer for you by the end of the meeting.
Michelle, there's something going on with your headphone or something, because you're breaking up very much to me, so I don't understand your answers. So the question was, how many folks are on your email distribution list?
She will be able to provide that information before the end of this call.
Yeah, David, this is Sarah. We'll just give Michelle a minute to maybe reconnect or figure out why the audio is breaking up a little bit, but she doesn't have that number right there at the tip of her finger, so we'll get that information to you here in just a little bit.
Okay, I'll ask one more process question and defer to others if they have questions. What is all right? The context with which I am asking this question is having read the explanation of the engineer's report that came out by email today. I am on the email list. And it said that what we're going to be voting on is, quote, approving the engineer's report, unquote. And earlier, as part of the work group, when we asked, what is the question going to be on the ballot? The answer was whether or not to create a new LLMD 5 district. What's the answer to the question?
So when you cast your ballot, you're casting your ballot either in favor or in opposition to the formation of the assessment district. And that's inclusive of the, your approval of the engineer's report, which outlines the methodology, the special benefit analysis, et cetera. So you're approving the assessment rate, but you're also, providing your approval overall to the district formation.
No, if I understand you've asked that we don't need comments, but just questions. That's very confusing to people on what we're supposed to. I mean, it's Victoria's over here. She was on a work group as well. That's a totally, Sarah, and I don't know if you remember me the other night at the big homeowners there. I came up to you after and complimented you on your presentation. But we should all understand that answer is total inside baseball. The distinction, it's a distinction without a difference. And again, I'm asking this or making these statements in the context of someone who strongly wants this to pass and figuring out how to do it. But I'll leave you with this comment and defer to other folks. Both my wife Victoria and I spent most of our working careers as political organizers, and we subscribed to the James Carville system of political organizing, which is KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. What we have here is keep it as complicated as we can possibly do it, and therefore we're going to fail. Thank you.
Michelle, we can't hear you.
Yeah, we can't hear you at all now. Did anyone else want to raise their hand to ask a question?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay,
Much
perfect.
better.
Yay. All right. I just wanted to make sure. Okay. And thank you, David, for those questions. One thing that I wanted to ask of you, David, is sorry, can you again repeat that last question of what you are confused on? And then maybe Sarah can answer or clarify in a better way.
Well, I'm not confused on it, unfortunately, but what is confusing is the message you posted, or I won't put it on you. The message that was posted today said that we're going to be voting on the approval of the engineer's report. But then Chris earlier and then tonight clarified that as saying, no, we're going to be voting on the creation of a new LLMD. And, you know, there's subtle differences, and yes, the engineer's report says this and this and that. And all it is making the whole discussion more complicated, not less complicated.
Thank you, David. Okay, so I think I understand the confusion. So Sarah, what I'm going to ask you to do is, can you explain how the engineer report creates the district?
Yeah, I mean, and I guess, you know, there's a little bit of semantics here too, in sort of how we're talking about this. But I mean, the engineer's report is essentially the document that there's a process to create the assessment district, but that process is supported by the analysis in the engineer's report. So, you know, while you're approving the engineer's report, you're also approving, you know, the process and so forth as well relative to the assessment district. And I know it's also a little bit strange because we can't actually talk about it as a vote, because it's not a vote technically. It's a protest ballot proceeding. So you know, unfortunately, thanks to Prop 218 and, you know, the way that this all kind of works now, it gets very complicated and in some ways convoluted.
And David, if I might restate maybe your suggestion or what you were saying, I see the line, I think I see the sentence here. It says, this information enables them to make informed decisions when it's time to cast their ballot on whether to adopt the engineer's report. Is that the sentence you're referring to? Oh, is he? There we go. I'll ask you to unmute. David, you there? I just ask you to unmute, or maybe
Sorry, I don't know who's controlling my mute.
that's okay. I was trying to unmute you, and maybe Michelle like pressed it and muted you. I'm sorry about that. But is that the sentence you're referring to when it says?
It is the sentence I'm referring to, but it's actually in there twice.
Oh, it's in there twice. Okay, so if we tweak that sentence a little bit, because I think what you're saying is someone who maybe hasn't been following this process reads that sentence and they're like, oh, when I submit my ballot, I'm submitting it to adopt the engineer's report and not necessarily to approve this district. So how do I then, what's the next step to approve the district? Is that kind of where you're going with that?
No, where I'm going with it is what I said earlier. It is, I mean, just reading the engineer's report. And I have word for word, frankly. And the engineer's report is very complicated. And there's all kinds of reasons why it's complicated. Prop 218, all the court cases, yada, 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 yada. I get it. But most folks who are just trying to live every day, you know, and they're not going to get it, how complicated this is. And the difference between passing the engineer's report and approving an LLMD and blah, 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 all of which is going to result in more assessment for me. How would you vote? You know, and again, this is coming from someone who is strongly in favor of getting this passed, and hope we can do it.
Great. So thank you, David, for that clarification. And just so you know, we do have follow-up posts. We do have posts about the engineers reports that will be coming pretty much on a weekly basis, trying to break down that language a little bit different, saying things in different ways for different people to understand. And so just so you know that will be coming.
Well, but excuse me, Michelle, for interrupting, and I know I'm taking too much time, but more information at the level of what we have gotten like today is not good, because it's wrong. It's inaccurate.
It's confusing.
It's.
But I guess that's where I'm asking if we,
or at least it's confusing.
yeah, so if we tweak that sentence to be more to the point, which is when you cast your ballot, it will be to adopt a new or approve a new assessment district. Would that clear it up?
Well, it would clear up that particular.
The post, right? Yeah, it would kind of clarify the post a little bit.
And of course, there's, at least 12 people that are actually reading this out of 1,200. So, yeah. Victoria actually wants to get on. I don't know if she's got her hand up.
I do.
In your system there.
I do.
I do. So, okay, so I'm going to go ahead and mute you, David, and then we can bring Victoria up. All right, Victoria, I'm asking you to unmute, and then you can go ahead and ask your question.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, we can, yes.
Okay. I'm going to try and get close and talk. I'm still having side effects from COVID and can't talk well. And I don't want to beat a dead horse of what David just said. But I think as you move forward in your writings, and Chris, your suggestion on how to fix this is a good one. But by injecting in this write-up about the engineer's report, sorry, I got to keep drinking. You have created, and whoever's doing the writing is, I know, doing their best to explain this, but people are going, well, am I approving, Smith Ranch increase? Am I approving a new LLMD? Now this comes out, and am I approving the engineer's report? We had a conference call with neighbors yesterday who were so flippin' confused and asking all sorts of questions. And it's like, somehow you have to capture that those three things mean the same thing. And by each time injecting, words matter. And when you inject new language, we know you're trying to go to every degree to explain things in detail, but what's happening is it's getting more confusing. And that is not good. When people are confused, I mean, we've had people on Nextdoor who originally were supporting this, and now they're saying they're not going to vote for it.
So Victoria, sorry, can I stop you right there? I just want to really get back to those questions. So you said that a lot of people had a lot of questions yesterday, and I would love to hear some of those questions. We have a lot of minds here. We have a lot of talent here, and I would love to hear some of those questions. So perhaps we can answer those, and this will be posted onto CivicMic.com, so then people can hear this. So if you can give me, or if you have some of those questions, we would love to answer some of those and really clear that up.
50,000 versus 80,000.
Well, I'll give you one, but this was one of them. You're promoting and writing approval of 3 different ways you're saying it. And people don't know what they're voting for. Am I voting to approve an engineer's report? Because people don't understand that approving the engineer's report will approve a new district, or it might, have approved the money, but you keep changing the language. And that was mostly the discussion yesterday. The other question was, is the street lighting 50,000 or 80,000? Paul, I wasn't at the meeting. Dave and others filled me in, and I've tried to get through the video. and I could be so wrong on this, but it seemed like somewhere along the line you clarified it was 80, not 50. Is that wrong?
Yeah, I don't know. Hi, Victoria. This is Paul. I don't know where the 80,000 comes from. Chris can actually jump in and confirm, but the 50,000 is the number that we provided to the working group members for the annual cost of the street lights within the private streets. So there was, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go, please.
There was a number of 80,000 that was discussed at the in-person community meeting, and that was for the combined cost for our consultant team, NBS and CivicMic. So that's the only number that I could think of that's 80,000. Chris, I don't know, correct me, please.
Yeah, that was the first thing I thought of when I heard 80,000, because I know that kind of number's been out in the public, and we've been discussing that number with the residents since last year, 2 years ago, actually, I think, when we brought on NBS. But yeah, the 50,000 was for those interior streetlights.
So can you tell me one more time so we can answer? The 80,000 is a combined cost for consultants and what else?
Just consultants. So that's
Okay.
it's an approximately $80,000, and that covers the community engagement services that CivicMic is providing to us. So that's Michelle and Danielle, if you've had a chance to meet Danielle. And then there's an additional approximately, and then that also covers NBS for the engineering work and producing this engineer's report and all of the research and you know, all the calculations that go into that. And that covers that report, basically. Also the balloting process, sending out the ballots, tabulation of those ballots. So all of that work is $80,000 approximately.
Okay, and the last one, since Michelle asked that, and I think Chris, you and Dave may have covered this, but to get it out in this work, into this call, is the way the most recent, what does the engineer's report provide? That talks, and I'm not going to quote all of it, but you know, it talks about maintaining the trees, the plants, other landscaping in public areas, medians, sidewalks, parks. Then you go into how many trees, how many square footage. We have been trying to explain to people that this also covers the common areas with the easements that, you know, Smith Ranch pays for, the city hires someone, and the contractor does the work. So when they read this, it doesn't say anything about behind the subdivision gates. And so people are reading this as though there's no coverage for that.
As promised, I did mention this to Sarah and Sandra just right before we got on our call earlier today. I did mention that, and I think, and Michelle, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the solution was we were going to correct that post as well and make those edits so that it doesn't necessarily specify public, because we know that the Streets and Highways Code does allow us to maintain landscaping that are not necessarily within public right-of-ways, not the streetlights, but the
Right. Right, we
okay.
got that.
Yeah.
And maybe a little parenthetical thing in there again, just to cover everybody's rear ends, is say, not the street lights behind the gates, you know, so people don't start getting confused. But, you know, when we're trying to convince people about how much needs to be taken care of behind all these gates, and then it just says public and doesn't mention, well, I won't beat the dead. Okay, that'll do it.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Victoria. And we will make those corrections, and we will also I will create a post just explaining and we have it what you will be voting on, what you will cast a ballot on. Please don't mind my correction. And it will say very clearly a lot of the language that will be on the ballot when people receive it. And so there is more information coming that will keep explaining things and hopefully break it down for everybody. And we will just be we will be more careful with the language we use. And thank you for that feedback.
Thank you. And you have to tell me how to get out of here now.
I will put you on mute.
Okay, and goodbye. Thank you, everybody.
And
All
feel
right, I
better,
see.
Victoria.
Yes. Donna Schmid, I see you are raising your hand. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Can you hear me?
We can, yes.
Great. I'm sorry I was unable to go to the meeting, the public meeting, because there was no option to conference in, and I too had COVID. And so I'm a little behind the 8 ball on some of this stuff, but when are the ballots expected to go out?
The ballots will go out following the intent meeting. That'll be a meeting of the city council that is held on April 18th. So they would hit the mail just shortly after that.
Okay, so fairly soon. I also have a question about the streetlights. Since I've never lived in an area where the city didn't take care of the streetlights, I just wonder what this $50,000 entails. Is that $50,000 a year, $50,000 over a period of time? What does that cover?
You want me to go ahead? Take that. So that was the budgeted number, the budgeted amount that we had for the streetlights just behind the gates on the interior streets. And what that was about a $10 per month per light charge for electricity. Now that is based on the tariff rate that the city gets as a public facility. So since those were public lights, or excuse me, I'm already using the wrong terminology. Since those were, owned by the city, it was under our account. And so that's the, kind of the average rate that we were getting per light. But it's also, in addition, it also includes about a $25 per year per light charge for maintenance and eventual replacement if needed of these street lights. And so when we added all of that up, it came out to around $50,000, which is the figure that we told the working group, which is what we were budgeting for. Now, the solution of how it's being paid for, after this, we're still working on those numbers, but we assume the cost to maintain those even outside of the LLMD will probably be around $50,000 or so.
Is that $50,000 per year?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, $50,000 per year.
It's a lot of money. Wow. And each household would their assessment cover that $50,000?
Well, after review and advisement from our legal team, we actually have to remove that service and funding for those streetlights from the LLMD portion. So this district that we're talking about right now cannot fund the maintenance or servicing or electricity for those streetlights because the Streets and Highways Code that governs LLMDs does not allow us to be able to use LLMD assessments for that purpose. But currently the city is in communications with the HOA and kind of, brainstorming some ideas on how we can continue to either provide that service. Maybe it's a transfer to the HOA. We're kind of just like discussing some ideas right now. But also at the meeting, what we did mention to everybody is that the lights are not being shut off. We're not planning to turn off the lights if we don't come up with a solution. I mean, we're going to be working with the HOA and the residents to make sure that service is still being provided in that area and that we can have, find an appropriate funding source for that service.
Yeah.
And just to add to that, there are some streetlights that are included in the LLMD. And those are there's just a small handful of streetlights that are kind of along the primary street. So those that are not, within those gated communities, but along the, the primary streets throughout the neighborhood. Those are included. Again, it's a very small handful. I'm looking to see what the number is, 46 streetlights, and the cost for that was, sorry, scrolling down here, I think just under $8,000. So that piece is included, 7,300 actually for the street lighting. So that part is included in the district. And so that is part of the overall assessment. So kind of two separate issues, if that helps clarify.
A little bit, but what I'm thinking is when we cast our ballots, does that include the street lighting or is that a separate issue?
It includes only the 46 streetlights within the assessment district and funding for the maintenance and servicing of those particular streetlights.
So it's clear to the homeowners, it will be clear to the homeowners that the street lights is a separate issue that will have to be paid for out of other funds, HOA or whatever.
The engineer's report clearly defines both visually with a map as well as with a count of the streetlights that are included in the assessment district.
Okay, I wasn't clear on that. I thought that it was covered under the LLMD, but it's not. Okay, I understand.
Thank you, Donna. And just so you know, we will be creating a Q&A post that will answer a lot of these questions in writing, just so that we have it on CivicMic.com. And so these answers will be there. If you want to read it, if you're still a little bit confused, we'll break it down.
Okay, thank you very much.
I think what we can do too, on that note of the streetlights in the private streets behind the gate, so to speak, as our conversations with the working group members and the HOA board, as those conversations progress and we kind of narrow in on the solution, then insofar as we can have enough progress to advise the residents, prior to the ballots being sent out, then we will do that to provide clarification. Right now, it's pretty fluid as far as the potential solution. So we don't want to make things more confusing by saying, here's the 3 options, everybody, that we're considering. Then, that may not be helpful. But I think just the clarification that they're not included within the assessment, that's a clarification we can provide, I think, in the Q&A.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
All right, so David, I do see your hand up. I don't know if that is from before, but if you do have a question, you can unmute yourself and ask it.
I have a quick comment and then I have a question. Sarah, with respect, the engineer's report is not clear on that point. It is very obfuscated on that point. And yes, it gets to it sooner or later, but for somebody who doesn't read engineer reports and doesn't write engineer reports, it is not clear. I'm sorry, but the thing that came out today from CivicMic, actually it was today, it says in the next installment of our series, we'll discuss general versus special benefits. When will that be coming out?
Hi, David. Yes, so we are working on that post now, and you should expect it by next Friday.
Next Friday.
And
Okay.
we were supposed to get an answer on how many people
Thank you.
are on the email list.
And
yes.
As we started the call, we posed the question on how many folks are on the your email list. And the reason we asked that is, one, I assume it's a smaller number than I would like. And we want to brainstorm within the HOA world to be able to expand that list and get it up to bigger numbers than it is now. So what is it now?
Yeah, of course. So let me look into that. I know I said I would, and then I got sidetracked, but I will look into it. We'll go to another question and then I will answer that. Thank you, David, for that
Okay.
reminder. Okay, so I see Ray Andy side. You are asked to unmute to ask your question.
Okay, thanks. I had a couple of hopefully pretty easy questions. I've just did a back of the napkin sketch. I was looking at the cost. It was mentioned as $10 per month per light and $25 per year per light. So I just divided the 50,000 by that adds up to $145 per year. Basically, I was wondering the number of lights that we're talking about.
344, I believe, is
Yeah.
how many lights were behind on the
Okay.
interior streets.
Okay, yeah, that's what I got from those numbers as well. Perfect. Also, at the meeting at the clubhouse, one of the things that was talked about was the voting percentage, right? The amount of votes that you get, or the weight of your voting is based on the amount of money that you are assessed. And one of the questions there was, how does that work out weighting wise with the clubhouse and the city owning that clubhouse and the golf course and the Rancho Solano Parkway? Has that already been answered? I don't know. I'd be interested to learn more about that.
There's a post on civicmic.com that you can look at, but if you want, I can share with you some of that analysis. What we've done is look at and this of course is the total assessment amount in the district, and is no relation to how many ballots might be returned. So I just want to make that really clear that when we do the ballot tabulation there for the proceeding, that is based on ballots returned, where these percentages are based on the assessment district as a whole. But for the percentages, 71% of the total assessment is on a single family residential property, 4% on multifamily residential, 1% on undeveloped, 3% for the assisted living, and 22% for the public property, which of course includes the city, and those any public buildings or parks or what have you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
And I did want to mention, just because I found the answer, that we do have 151 people signed up for CivicMic in your district. Okay, let's see. I see, Donna Schmid, I still see your hand up. I'm not sure if you are re-raising it. Do you have another question? All right, I don't think so. All right, David, I see your hand up as well. Do you have another question?
I do, because there is confusion in my head because I've gotten two different answers on whether or not the golf course itself, not the buildings and so forth, but the golf course itself, A, has an assessment, and B, will it have a vote?
Yes to both, David. They both have an assessment, and the owner of that parcel, so the city, would have a chance to vote based on that parcel. And just FYI, the golf course sits on various parcels. Probably that confused things maybe even more, but for each parcel, every property owner for each parcel will have a chance to cast a ballot.
Well, there's something that says the confusion comes in part of, I think, what I read today about the fact that the golf course is not part of the LLMD or something like that. So I don't get it. Never mind, Chris.
Oh, it shows on that chart that the golf course is not included.
I'll find it and send it to you, and because we need to clarify that. Because I mean, the cynicism of a lot of folks is, hey, the city's got 22% of the vote already. This is a done deal. Assuming a low turnout, which I'm assuming, and if it includes the golf course, that makes the cynicism even more.
And just for the record, because, oh, sorry, go ahead, Sarah.
I was just gonna say, even with the golf course, the total weight of the public property as a percentage of the total assessment is still only 22%. You know, which is not, you know, not real high. But I wanted to mention, I think maybe perhaps what you've seen about the golf course, there is a statement in the engineer's report that the maintenance, operation, and servicing, meaning the assessment revenue, is not going to maintain the golf course, but the golf course is a benefiting property within the assessment district and paying their share of that special benefit. So
I think, Sarah, thank
maybe
you,
that's the
Sarah.
clarification.
Yeah,
Thank
that's,
you,
yeah, I was
Sarah.
gonna say.
I think that clarifies the distinction.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And we will be sure to put that in the FAQ, David, so that others can see that. Thank you. All right, so I am seeing the same hands. Again, to raise your hand, you will go down and click the happy face in the reactions with the plus and raise your hand. So if you do have a question, I do hope that you will ask it. Oh, I see Jamie again. So,
Hi.
hi,
Yeah,
Jamie. Go
one
ahead
more
and ask your
question.
question.
So I think I have read the report several times, and but I'm now, some of these questions got me wondering, if there's a no vote, I know that that the HOA will have to be responsible for the lighting. Will they also have to be responsible for the maintenance behind the gate? The lawn, the landscaping maintenance, or just the lighting?
So you said if there's a no vote, meaning if the district is not approved?
Right. If the district's not approved, I understand that that the HOA will, or the homeowners will be responsible for the lighting behind the gate. What about the landscaping maintenance?
Well, just for clarification, so I guess I should start here. If the new district is not approved, we still have an existing district in place that can provide these services, both landscaping and lighting. Since the legality, for lack of a better term, of servicing the lights behind the gates is a matter of the actual law itself, and it doesn't really matter which district we're providing that service under. The law says any LLMD cannot provide these services to the private lights. We would have to immediately stop funding that service under even the existing district. So the lights, I guess in plain terms, the lights behind the district, the lights behind the gate are removed from the Rancho Solano LLMD regardless.
Okay.
Now, if the new district is not approved, what happens to the landscaping? Well, as I mentioned, we still have the existing district in place. We just don't have enough funding to be able to maintain the same level of service of landscaping that the district has historically been providing. So what you're going to see is, as far as the LLMD is concerned, that service will start to taper off because we can only provide a level of service equal to the amount of revenue we receive, right? Basically under that existing district. So if the HOA would like to supplement those services on their own, and then we can coordinate with them on who's doing what, we could certainly do that and have those discussions in the future. But it's not as if the landscaping will just be shut off, July 1 if this district doesn't form. If this district is not approved, we will then propose to the council that they just continue with the existing district, continue levying that existing assessments that's under the existing district. Then again, we'll just have to kind of work with what we have at that point.
And we would see a tapering off in the level of service. Okay. Yeah, that's kind of scary actually, because I was actually also going to ask on this, it's not part of this new district or anything, but in driving home in the rain and seeing the banks getting watered, the grass getting watered in the middle of a rainstorm is kind of frustrating, and having it water the streets is another frustrating, thing. I don't know who to call to complain about that, but
the sprinklers themselves were on. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, sprinklers on while it's raining, sprinklers watering the streets instead of the grass, things like that. To me pertain to the level of service. There should be some automated you know, systems in place that turn off when it's raining, or, you know, checking to make sure that it's not, that the sprinklers are not watering the streets and things like that. And the reason I keep asking about the maintenance, in the landscaping instead of the lighting, is because lighting is 5% of the total. It's all, you know, the maintenance, if we're looking at $1 million compared to $50,000. It's like, you know, who cares about the lights? Let's work on, you know, the lion's share of these costs, which is the maintenance, the care, landscaping and maintenance of the landscape. So yeah, so to me, it's I think that needs to be pointed out, maybe in you know, somehow, that a little more prevalently, that if this is not approved, the homeowners of Rancho Solano are going to see what's already marginal service get worse in the landscaping. So that was it.
Thank you for that. I think we might have a post about that upcoming in our communication plan. But we'll make sure to add that. If not, I did want to just address real quick. One, I will go ahead and pass along your comment about the sprinklers being on during the rain to our operations team. And two, you mentioned you don't know where to report that. We actually do have a place on our website, which is I was just kind of looking for right now, but I'll find it during the meeting and I'll post it in the chat. We do have a place on our website where you can report anything you see during this, you know, throughout the city: potholes, street lights, landscaping. We also have the My Fairfield CA app. That you can also, you just straight from your phone, you can plug that whatever you'd like to report in there. So like I said, I'll find that link and I will post it in the chat for you.
That's great. Thanks, Christina.
One thing I can add to that too, Jamie, is it's with our irrigation systems and controllers, and Richard maybe even can be able to add to this. It is a lot of work doing the regular checks on those systems. Part of the challenge with our low bid contractors is they don't staff it appropriately to be able to be checking the systems as often as they should, or contracted to do so. And so with, again, with our new contracts, they're resourcing it properly as far as we can see to this point. And so with, you know, a higher level contractor in place, we should be able to see improvement in that area. I don't know if Richard, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, what I can add is regarding sprinklers operating during the rain, because of the age, excuse me, because of the age of the system out there, we do have some older irrigation valves. And right now during the winter time, we have them programmed to operate every 15 to 21 days, just so they exercise, because if they sit over the summer, they're old cast iron valves, basically, they'll freeze. So again, we have them scheduled to come on for a few minutes during, you know, every 15 to 21 days during the winter, just to exercise them. And that does happen sometimes when it's raining. So, and that's what you'll see. Regarding sprinklers that are shooting out into the streets, that goes back to what Paul says, and just the routine maintenance checks and making the adjustments as necessary. So like Chris said, we do have the reporting tools on the website to report those, and we do have an inspector assigned to the area. And if you can let us know where those locations are, we'd be happy to get, you know, the inspector as well as the contractor out there to make the necessary adjustments that you see.
And just for everybody's benefit, I did go ahead and post that link in the chat box. So I posted the link to report directly on the City of Fairfield website. I posted the link to be able to download the My Fairfield CA app. And I'm just posting right now the Public Works Corporation Yard main line as far to get to our operations team directly, and then also the after hours emergency. So I'll be posting that here in just a moment.
And that is posted somewhere on CivicMic.com, but we will update it and make sure that it comes to the top of people's posts and remind people of that. Thank you for that. So it is 7:56. I do see that Victoria has her hand raised. So if anybody else has a question, I do request that you raise your hand now, just so we know how many we have left. If not, then we will end the last question with Victoria. All right, thank you. I'm gonna ask you to unmute, Victoria.
Thanks. Is the homeowner that just spoke, is that Ray who just made comments? Do I have the right name?
No, it's Jamie.
Jamie.
Brazil.
Okay, thank you, Jamie. I just want to piggyback on what he said. That in the Q&A, I know that the city cannot take a position on which way the homeowners should vote, but you should be, I think, very strong in your language as to what will happen to our services if this is not passed, that it will be reduced greatly. And that's what we're telling people. Again, going back to the parks that we talked about earlier, Chris, pre-call, people just really don't understand how much. That's why we wanted to say that the maintenance behind the gates will still be taken care of, because some people don't even know the city does that. They think the HOA does it. Some people know. It's just a hodgepodge. And I think that Jamie is very much correct in saying that. And then there was one other thing. Oh, I think clarification, and I leave it up to, this is, your day job, and you guys know how this should be done. And we've been critical of some of the writing, but people are confused about that they're voting on the issue of the streetlights also. It is not clear to everyone, and I'd say the majority, that regardless of if they approve a new district, which then gives us increased funding to be able to, continue to take care of the services at a level we would want, some people think, and they came out of that meeting thinking it too, that this is all one big vote, that they're voting on the lights too. And so I don't know how you can do that in a Q&A, but you should, I think, focus on differentiating that this vote that they're making. And again, why I said, when you keep wording it different ways of how you're voting, engineers report, assessment, new district, that it's clear that no matter what happens, the city will no longer be taking care of those lights, so that people aren't thinking when they vote, well, I'm going to vote no because the city will still have to continue to take care of the lights. And we need to figure out a way that gets communicated to homeowners better. And that's all I have to say. Thank you, everybody, for your time tonight, too. We know you've had a lot of meetings.
Thank you, and hope you feel better.
You're muted, Michelle.
Thank you. I was saying, Chris, do you have anything that you wanted to add to that statement or clarify?
Regarding the streetlights?
The streetlights, yes.
No, I think if we put it out in a post, I'm sorry, did we commit to that in the beginning of the meeting, putting a post about the streetlights? Or
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So I think if we put out the post, and then maybe one other tool that would be really helpful is if looking at that map on page 8 of the engineer's report really shows the areas that are being maintained by the district, and it has the little yellow dots which really show the street lights. So if someone has a question about which areas are being maintained or which street lights we're talking about, I think that would be a great tool to show them and to kind of clarify some of that. But I think, yeah, let's put out that post. Let's continue on with that same message of letting people know that the streetlights have to be removed from the LLMD. It was kind of a little bit of a toss up because we say it and we don't want to alert, or we don't want to strike panic, among anybody. And they say, oh, I'm not going to have any streetlights because, the streetlights will be continue to be serviced. So, it was just a decision we had to make as to whether or not to say it directly in the engineer's report, because I think that was something we considered. But I think that a post and just continually messaging that out to people would help to clarify that. So we'll definitely do that.
Great. Thank you, Chris. All right. Well, it is 8:02. I just want to thank everybody for coming. Paul, do you want to give some closing words?
Not really. Just want to thank, like you did, thank everybody for coming tonight. There's going to be obviously additional information coming out over the next several weeks. Additional opportunities, of course, to ask questions through CivicMic. You can always give us a call to ask questions if you want to talk through it a little bit more. We appreciate the feedback and the engagement tonight. We also want to do things the best we can to make it clear to people so that everybody has the right information. Kind of hearing some of the feedback on trying to keep things simple. We'll take that to heart and try to do our best to kind of thread the needle, right, of giving enough information but keeping it simple so it doesn't get confusing, which is a challenge in itself, right, because it is a confusing topic and there's so many layers here. But we will strive to do that. Thank you for joining us tonight, and have a good evening.
All right. Thank you, everybody.